Hi everyone, welcome to this short session about managing your personal and professional networks. My name's Glenn Murphy, and over the next 5 to 10 minutes I'm going to step you through ways in which you can actually maximise and leverage your own personal networks to make sure that you get the best possible chance in the future in terms of your career aspirations. Why am I doing this video? Well, back in the day, Artemis Chang was my supervisor for my PhD. As a result of that, she reached out to me and asked, could I do this video? Networks are important. Networks help you get things done. It's not just about what you know, it's about who you know. It's an old saying, and it's absolutely true. Why am I starting this video here? Well, for good reason, I guess, but some sentimental ones as well. Back in the 90s when I was a student here, this kidney lawn was the absolute hub of the university. It's where we hung out, where we chilled between classes, we had barbecues, demonstrations, displays, all that sort of stuff. Things have changed a little bit since then, but fundamentally the principle remains the same. And you can see in this big building over here that the university has deliberately designed a space where people can come together, they can collaborate, work together, socialise, and more importantly, build personal networks that hopefully go beyond the university degree and actually become a really strong, powerful alumni network that helps you achieve career success as a cohort. So over the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to step you through ways in which you can actually conceptualise a network. For example, most of the time, if you look behind me, you would just see groups of people. A couple of people here, a couple of people there, a group over there, somebody talking on the phone. What I see is networks. What I see is a collection of individuals tied together in some way. And I guess my job as a network researcher is to try and figure out the importance of the connections, and not necessarily the individuals themselves. I ask about, what advice do people get? What resources do people get? How can they reach out to other people as a result of the connections they know? All these aspects are important when you're considering how you manage your networks, particularly your professional ones, not just your personal ones. So over the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a number of tools and techniques that you can use to actually map out and measure the effectiveness of your network, particularly in terms of what you want for your career success. So we're going to begin that now. Okay, so we've given you a bit of an insight into what we want to achieve in this video, but we haven't really gone into much detail yet about why we think measuring and investigating your networks are really important. And there's a number of different reasons as to why we think you should be thinking right now, very early on in your career, about your professional and personal networks. We know that from a student perspective, that those students in first year, for example, who have broader networks and deeper networks, in that they have multiple connections, but they also have strong relational and emotive connections to the people they're connected to, do better. They stay in uni longer, they achieve more, they stress less, all that sort of stuff. From my own research, for example, we also know that in the professional field, those HR practitioners who have a better network are better able to get projects up and running, who are able to put in innovative HR practice ahead of those that don't necessarily have such a good network. And there's 20 odd years of network research that talk about how those who better understand their network, who can visualise it and conceptualise where they are in their particular network, actually are more successful. So there are a number of reasons why even right now, very early on in your professional career, you should really be thinking about how to manage my network, how do I make it work for me, where is it got to be improved, where am I strong, where am I weak. Okay? But of course, we all know the mythical, magical person who just easily makes relationships and easily makes friends and is able to get favours done for them. There is countless examples of those in Hollywood and history where people are the people to go to get favours. They're able to get things that nobody else can get. And that's fine. They are people who are natural at being networkers. And the reality is that not everyone is a natural networker. But what we want to do today is just very quickly run you through some basic tools that you can use to actually manage your networks and build that skill of networking. And of course, that's been facilitated over the last 10 or 20 years, realistically 10 years. Facebook's not only even 10 years old, to really look at ways in which you can leverage digital media to help better capture, visualise and unpack and measure your networks. So there's about 6 or 7 network concepts that I want to share with you today. And these are things that you can actually do to quantifiably measure the state of your network and decide, is it giving me what I need? Is it a network I'm comfortable with? Is it capable of helping me achieve what I need to in either my personal or professional life? And right at the top we have centrality, and this is the idea, am I the centre of my own universe? There's the idea of, are you a broker between two particular groups? The next two are very important. Network redundancy and strength of weak ties are incredibly important if you want to look at the extent to which you're developing deep knowledge in a particular area, or whether you actually need a very wide-ranging, kind of exposure to new ideas, new ways of thinking, new approaches that you might actually be able to incorporate and use in your daily life. The next two beyond that are very important as well in terms of strain of weak ties. Every time you develop a network contact, every time you develop a new relationship, that is costing you time, energy or money, or all of the above. So you have to make sure that the right amount of investment is placed in the right area in your network to make sure that you're not over-investing in one area and neglecting another. And finally, as I've alluded to before, network knowledge is incredibly important. We've got good empirical data to suggest that those people who are better able to perceive their network and accurately locate themselves within that network actually have a far better success rate. They are better able to know who's got the power, who doesn't, who's got the say and who doesn't, who can I go to for knowledge, advice and resources, and of course that allows people to get things done, and people are successful when they get things done. So on the board here, I'm just going to use the board to basically outline a number of different concepts that are outlined here. And the first is centrality. And that's the one people are most comfortable with when they think about a network. And in fact, it doesn't just happen so much now, but when social media first hit the screens of our computers, there was, in some cases, this mad rush for people on Facebook to get as many contacts as possible. It was this sort of insane badge of honour that if I had 3 million contacts, that somehow I was super popular. And of course, the reality was they weren't. They were probably just really sad and lonely. But this was an idea that was very well received by the general population, that the more contacts I have, the more popular, more successful I am. So the whole idea of centrality is that you are in the middle here, and of course, the more central you are, the more contacts you have. So this person has 2 contacts here. However, if someone else has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on, the simple basic view suggests that they are more popular, they are more powerful, they are better able to access elements that are really important. And that's fine to a certain degree, and certainly there's enough data around to show that those who do have a high degree of centrality, who do have more contacts than others, there's a reasonable correlation between people being successful and being highly central. But there are a number of things you've got to think about, and one of them, very importantly, is about network redundancy. This person is reasonably powerful when the network looks like this, when they are in the middle and everybody else is connected to them and them only. If this happens, I'll use a different colour. If these people are connected to each other this way, then to a certain degree, this network is what we call redundant. And in fact, if I took this person out, the network wouldn't fall apart. It would actually remain because people are connected to each other. Right? So network redundancy is very important. Is your network giving you the same amount of information, or is it giving you different, vital, other sources of information? So, if you're a technical specialist and you work in an area that's quite detailed, let's say pay remuneration, that sort of stuff, or really technical kind of engineering project management, it may be that you are deeply connected to a bunch of other technical specialists, right? And everybody knows each other, and you actually reinforce the deep technical knowledge that you have. And in that instance, that might be fine. But if you're in another position, like a CEO or a general manager of HR or a broader project manager, you can't afford to have this type of knowledge base. You need a broad, expansive knowledge base. You need to find areas that have new ideas, that are doing things differently, doing things potentially better, that you can grab and employ in your area. So in that instance, you're actually probably better, and again I'll use a different colour, to have a network that looks like this. So as a project manager, you're connected to this group of people, and I don't know, they might be customer service experts or something like that. Over here, you're connected to these people, and they might be your IT experts. So from that perspective, your ability to manage your project is enhanced because you can get stakeholder management, stakeholder engagement ideas from this lot. And also too, everybody's beholden to the IT guys these days, making sure that you have a good relationship with this to make sure your systems work, make sure your computers work, that you get the technology you need when you need it. So there's two vastly different forms of network, and in fact, in this instance, centrality doesn't play a massive part at all. Right? It's more about the nature of the relationships that you have rather than the simple concept of, have I got masses of connections? Okay. This network here shows another really important property that's on our list, and that's the idea of being a network broker. Right? So a network broker is actually a very powerful position, and that's that position right here. Okay? Because what this individual does is actually link two different groups. Right? That links our customer service, stakeholder engagement people to our IT people. And you're the one that these two groups have to go through. So a broker is a very powerful position, and in fact might not be very central at all in terms of the classic heaps of connections. But if they actually connect a bunch of different groups together, and they have a lot of power, because you can see here that they actually act as the gateway of knowledge, information, resources, favours, whatever it might be, to all of these different groups. In effect, this one single individual here has power over 1, 2, 3, 4 groups, and even more so, 4, 6, 8, 11 individuals in a particular network. So it's very important to understand that not just how many connections you have, but the nature of those connections. Do you have a strong, deep, very knowledge-specific network? Do you have a network that's broad and varied? And is that what you need for your particular job, your particular role, your particular career aspirations? Or are you a broker? Do you link various groups together, and is your power source, if you like, derived from the fact that you actually link various groups together? You may be one of these very clever people that can talk IT and talk customer service. So are you actually the kind of, the translator between these two groups? If the stakeholder management, customer service people want some IT stuff, they go to you because you know how to talk to the IT people. You know the right language, you know how to convince them, you know how to influence them. So these are all really important aspects to consider when you look at your overall makeup of your network. But it's also important to consider how much effort and energy is all this taking. Back in the day it was about going to bars, going to lunches. Even now it's still about going out for coffee with people. All that costs both money and time. So you've got to make sure that if I'm having lunch with this particular person here, is that worth it? Is this group down here really important for what I want? Do they have something really vital that I know I use on a regular basis and they're actually giving it to me because of my relationship with them? These are very important factors. Of course, now with LinkedIn, Facebook, and whatever other social media tool you might like to use, keeping in contact with people is a lot easier, and the investment has actually dropped as a result of that. You can like a comment that someone's made, you can make a comment in response to something they've posted, and that helps maintain that connection. It's not ideal, it's kind of like on the really kind of limited, superficial end of things, but it's better than nothing. But remember, if you do want to genuinely build a relationship that's going to give you, the kind of aspects that you need, you really need to make sure about how am I going to maintain that relationship, how much effort am I going to put into it, What's it going to cost me? And what's the return I'm going to get from that managing that network? And this seems all very Machiavellian, but this is the nature of it. If you want to use a network to be more successful, to get more things done, to be happier, these are the things you have to consider. And I guess one of the minor points there is about reciprocity. Am I getting what I'm getting? Right? Do I just keep giving to groups and individuals and I get nothing back? Or is there an equal flow of resources? And in some instances, you may not want an equal flow of resources. You may want to control all those resources. So from some groups, you may want to take, and others give, and give. In other situations, you may want a free and equal exchange of information and favours. So again, it's important to consider what you want out of your particular network. And finally, we look at this whole notion of network knowledge. Now, in the past, this has required some degree of, I guess, kind of imagination and judgment. You'd have to sort of, get a piece of paper like this and kind of write down who you know and what you know, and it's quite a lot of time, energy, and effort, particularly if you've got a network that, is larger than, say, 10 or 20. It's really difficult to figure out exactly who's where, who knows what, and what sort of carry on. Thankfully, we've got things like LinkedIn now that actually generate a map of our contacts. Now, of course, not all of our contacts will be on LinkedIn and also carry on, but most are. And you can at least measure out the rough estimation of your network using LinkedIn as one particular tool. So here's an example of my network captured over the last 2 or 3 years. So you can see here, this is a very early network map that I generated in February 2011. Now LinkedIn's pretty good in that it actually color codes connections that are connected to each other in some way or another. So you can see that in this particular instance, I have 2 clear, strong networks with me in the middle. I have my MBA students and also have my QUT academic colleagues, such as Artemis Chang's your lecturer. Right? So that's where we are in 2011. Now, the whole important thing to really remember is that networks are dynamic. So if you can see a year later, in February 2012, you can see that my network has grown almost exponentially. But I still have 2 primary groups there. I have in the blue the QUT academics, and I also have the MBA students. I have a new group of executive MBA students that I also come in contact, and then I have some randoms that I have picked up along the way in terms of my external connections and my external research and that sort of thing. So again, when you look at further down the track, we see in May 2012 the network has grown yet again. I have a new cohort of executive MBAs. I have more randoms, slightly more MBA students, and my QUT academic network is growing as well. Now I look at that network and I think, okay, I'm pretty central. I have a lot of connections to various different groups. Or are they really that various, and are they really that different? The reality is that if I look at this network, you can see that I'm quite strong within the QUT community. But outside the QUT community, I really don't have any connections at all. And this is a real problem if you're an aspiring academic like myself. If you want to move up the chain to associate professor and professor in our world, you have to have national recognition, you have to have international recognition. And if you don't have a network that is diverse, that is broad, that goes to other institutions, then your likelihood of being promoted is pretty lean. So when I looked at my network, I went, bloody hell, I'm in a bit of trouble here. I'm really strong internally at QUT, but I really have to manage my networks externally. So over the last couple of years, I've been really trying to make sure that I actively develop relationships and contacts outside of university. So hopefully when I run, for example, my LinkedIn network map this year, of course I'll still be strongly in QUT, that's where I work, that's where I get connections, but it's really about leveraging some of those external connections. So for example, some of those MBA students, can I turn them into research partners? Can I look at other colleagues doing similar work in similar fields in other universities so that I can build my network there? So these are some of the concepts that you can think about, that you can learn, that you can practice in terms of managing your professional network. So what I want you to do now is actually undertake an assessment of your own network. It's a very basic assessment, but it should get you thinking about some of the concepts that I've just talked about and displayed on the board. So hopefully Artemis has given you a sheet that looks like this in front of you. And there are three major components to it. And the first one is really about centrality. I want you to think about overall, what is your total network size? So I want you to estimate, as accurate as possible, as many people as you know in your unit, major, and your overall degree. Now, when I say how many people do you know, I'd expect you to know their first and second name, be able to talk to them and have some sort of conversation. If they're the kind of people I want you to think about when you put your numbers in there. Don't agonise over it, don't go crazy, just put in, say, multiples of 5, multiples of 10. I know 5 people in my unit, I know, maybe 20 people in my HR degree, maybe I know overall in the bachelor of business, maybe I know 50. So, people that I know the names of, people that I could have a conversation with and be happy to stuck on the left with. Okay? When you've done that, I want you to add A, B and C together. That is your total network size. So that is your overall centrality. Okay? Once you've done that, I want you to then think about, as accurate as possible, how many people that you nominated in A, B or C up the top that know each other. Okay? So how many people in A know each other? How many people in B know each other? How many people in C know each other? So if in A you put 5 people and you reckon that you know that 3 of those people in that group that you nominated actually know each other, the number 3 goes into A2. Okay. Then what you do then, of course, is take away A2 away from A, and that will give you what is your actual network size. So that helps to measure things like redundancy. Right? Am I in a group of people that know each other? Everybody knows each other, everybody knows each other's business, everybody knows the same stuff. So for example, if I was to go to them for advice on their assignment, I'd pretty much get the same sort of advice, and that's a bit of an issue if everyone's got it wrong, for example. Okay? So that second column really helps you to determine what is my actual network size in terms of my access to different forms of information and different forms of advice, different ideas, different ways of thinking. So you might have a total network size of 30, but the reality is that your actual network size is maybe 10, because there's 10 people that aren't connected to anybody else. In the final part of this exercise, we actually look at strong and weak ties. Strong ties are those connections or those relationships that you consider quite strong, quite deep. They typically have, a high degree of frequency, so you see these people a lot, and there probably is some form of emotional connection in one form or another to them. So in my world, these are the kind of people I would buy a drink for. I trust them in that they would buy a drink back for me. Those that are weak ties, so those that I see not that often, I'm not that emotionally connected to them, I don't really hang out with them a huge amount, I wouldn't necessarily call them friends, I'd more call them associates or that sort of thing. They're people I wouldn't necessarily buy a drink for because I don't know if they would actually buy a drink back for me. Okay, and we've all been there and around drinks where there's always one person who never, ever buys a round. They're my weak ties. So what I want you to do is look at all those people that you've nominated in A, B and C up the top and think, okay, of all those people that I know in my unit, and I've put the number in there in A, how many of those would I regard as strong ties? How many of those would I buy a drink for and legitimately expect for them to buy a round of drinks back for me? Right? The remainder become your weak ties, and it's important to have a balance. Typically you have a small, core, concentrated group of strong ties, because to maintain a strong tie relationship takes a lot more effort and energy, of course, than a bunch of weak ties. You need to be hanging out with people a lot, you need to be having coffee with them, you need to be engaging with them, interacting with them. Okay? So that's a strong tie. If you have too many strong ties, this can be a problem. It can be a lot of effort, a lot of investment, without much return. Similarly, you don't want to have just a narrow amount of weak ties. Ideally, the nature of a weak tie is that you have quite a lot, spread over a vast area. And this is one of the advantages of maintaining connections with people at the very start, when you meet at the very start of your degree. So all those people doing economics as a major, as marketing as a major, as psychology or whatever it might be, you'll eventually, of course, connect with them less and less as you specialise in your own areas, say management or HR. But they're really valuable, weak connections. There are people you can reach out to later on when you've all finished your degree and say, oh, you know, the economist that now works in Treasury might be useful because you can get some financial information or some, some state revenue information. The person who works over psychology can help you out with a counselling issue that you've got with one of your employees. So these are all really important for you to understand in terms of what are my weak ties, how many have I got, how many of my strong ties have I got, and what are they costing me in terms of my ability to maintain them. So really that's what we look at in terms of managing your professional and personal networks. You can see here in this graphical diagram all the concepts that we've covered in this video. So right in the middle of the red dot, we've got this highly central individual. But more than that, this person's actually a broker. They sit between several individuals in green and also two major blue groups. So this person here is not only just highly central, but they're actually really powerful as well due to their broker role. They've got some weak ties, but they've also got some really strong ties as well. And you can see that the two groups there, we've got a highly reciprocal group where everybody's connected to everyone. So the reality is that in most cases they will share similar attitudes, they will have similar knowledge and be able to give you similar forms of information. In real terms, the red dot could go to any person in the highly reciprocal group and get the same form of information. That's different to the non-redundant contact group, where every single one of those individuals may have a different take on a particular issue. So in that essence, they are probably useful as well. And more importantly, the blue dot in the non-redundant contact group is actually an access point to those peripheral members. And something, again, that you might want to reach out to those peripheral members, but you need the blue dot to make that happen. So that's where we are in terms of managing your social networks. There's ways in which you can measure, capture, and conceptualize what you do. And as we know, the better able you are to see how you sit in that network, the better your success is going to be. Are you the red dot? Are you the green dot? Are you the blue dot? Are you the black dot? As soon as you can accurately picture where you sit in that particular network map, you'll be able to make some concrete positive changes to be in a position that you want to be. And once you do that, you'll be better able to leverage your network to achieve your career outcomes. You now have some basic tools that you can use to measure your network and evaluate whether it's the kind of network you need to achieve your career goals. This should be done on a periodic basis, not just a once-off, particularly when you feel you need to make a transition or make a move, or you feel that your career aspirations have changed somewhat and you need to figure out a way in order to get from A to B. Using these simple tools on an ongoing basis will help you figure out, am I in the right spot? Am I connected to the right people? Have I got the right resources? Thanks for listening. Hope you found it useful. If you want to talk to me face to face on this sort of stuff and explore this in a bit more detail, or even do an honours project on it, make sure you contact me on gd.murphy@qut.edu.au, or you can contact me on my mobile 0403 001 623. Thanks for listening, people. Good luck in your career. Hope to see you in the future. Bye.